Guess who just turned 21 today and spent the entire night doing her nails because she wanted her nails to look cute for her birthday, but now is running off of no sleep? Me! Nah, but I literally stayed up all night doing my nails for no reason. Like, I should have done this last week, but I'm just lazy and I wait till last second and do everything, so here we are. Started doing them at 10 o'clock last night, and it's 2:30 in the afternoon right now because it's my birthday and I don't want to sleep on my birthday. But anyway, turning 21 reminded me of a very funny story. Actually, kind of like a life lesson, honestly. So this was like a few years ago. So the store that sells beverages, right, to people who are, teenagers, was a place that I would go often. And I'm not proud of it, and do not do this because you should only be partaking in these activities when you are the legal age. But anyway, I went in there, got some bevs, and brought it to my friend's house to have some fun, just to chill, laugh a little bit, be a little goofy together, But, that we had too many bevs when my friend was like, let's sneak some boys in. And I was like, your parents are home and awake, so maybe not. And she was like, nah, let's do it. So she calls them over. By the way, this is her house, not my house. If it was my house, I'd be like, yeah, okay, you thought. But anyway, sneaks them in. 5 minutes later, her dad texts her, who just snuck into my house? I see you on the Ring camera. And she was like, nobody. And I was like, oh God. And he was like, I just saw you. And she was like, Dad, you're seeing things. And he was like, if I come downstairs right now, am I gonna find anyone? And she was like, no. So he comes down and finds 8 boys in the closet.
Story time about how my date turned out to be a serial killer. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. It was sent to me on Instagram. I recently got promoted at my job and had to move to a new city. I didn't know anyone in this new city, so I decided to sign up for some dating apps. Within a few days, I was already talking to some guys. One of them in particular was really nice, and I could tell he was really trying to get to know me. So I gave him my phone number. From there, we texted for about a full week. He would say good morning and good night. He would always ask me questions and act like he was just really interested in me. I decided that I really liked him and I told him. That's when he asked me if I wanted to go on a date, and of course, I said yes. We decided to meet up for dinner during the weekend. On the morning of the date, I sent him a text message saying good morning. I didn't hear anything back from him. At first, I thought maybe he's just stuck at work. An hour before the date, I still hadn't heard from him, so I decided to send him a text. And he did not reply. So of course, I ended up going to dinner by myself anyway. But when I got home, I had a message from him apologizing for standing me up. When I asked him what happened, he told me that he got stuck at work. And I decided to believe him. I had no reason not to trust him. I decided to give him a second chance when he asked me out again. The following weekend, we decided to have a picnic. But same thing, a few hours before the date, I still hadn't heard from him. That's when I sent him a message asking him if he was going to show up or not. And I didn't hear anything from him for a few hours. Finally, he messaged me once again saying that he got stuck at work. He begged me for another chance, and I said yes. A few days later on the news, I saw that 2 women had disappeared after going on a date with some guy. And both of the women had disappeared in the area that I lived in. When I told my parents about it, they urged me not to go on any dates. So I decided not to tell them that I actually had a date that week. The following day, we meet at the restaurant. As soon as I see him, he's really sweaty and nervous. And when he hugged me, he smelled really bad. As in B.O. I didn't want to judge him, but I asked him if he was okay. That's when he told me that he'd been working every single day nonstop. Then I'd look at his fingernails, and they're full of dirt and what seemed like some red stuff. I asked him what he did for work again, and you'll never guess what he said. He said he was in murders and acquisitions. Then he laughed. This is where it gets scary. Part 2 is up. Part 2 of how my date turned out to be a serial unaliver. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. I was sending me on Instagram. On the date, I noticed that his fingernails were dirty, he was really sweaty, and he smelled really bad. When I asked him what he did again for a living, he told me he was in murders and acquisitions. Then he started laughing maniacally. He told me it was a joke and it was a line from one of his favorite movies, American Psycho. I tried to laugh it off with him, but I just couldn't get past his whole demeanor. Then he started just doing bizarre things. He ordered tons of food, steak, chicken, pasta, nachos, salad, and he ate all of it. But the way he was eating was so aggressive, it was like he hadn't eaten in days. By the way, at this point, we hadn't followed each other on social media. So I told him I wanted to go to the bathroom. When I got to the bathroom, I started looking up his Instagram. He had a profile, but not many pictures on it. Then I started looking through his tagged pictures, but again, nothing. It was like he didn't exist outside of the dating app. I decided I'd stay for the date, but then I wouldn't speak to him again. When I got back to the table, he started asking me a lot of questions. Like, did I live by myself? Have I ever shot any weapons? I mean, what kind of question is that on a first date? Then out of nowhere, he asked me if I wanted to go to his lake house. He quickly pulled up his phone and showed me a few pictures. I finally asked him again what he did for a living. He told me that his parents are very wealthy and they own several ranches, and that he basically did all the marketing for them. Then he abruptly ended the date. I mean, trust me, I wanted to go home anyway, but it's the way he did it. I told him I probably wouldn't have time to go to the lake house. Then he called a server over and gave them his black card, which is a pretty good indication if someone has money. Then he went to the bathroom. At this point, I just wanted to make a run for it. He comes back out, grabs his card from the server, and tells me goodnight. As we're walking out of the restaurant, he stops me and tries to kiss me. Of course, I turned my face away. Then he said, "Ah, you're a fighter, aren't ya?" He then got in his car and simply Part 2 of how my date turned out to be a serial unaliver. Disclaimers is not my story time. It was sent to me on Instagram. If you haven't seen part 2, go watch it. The following day, I hear that another woman is missing. This is when they showed a description of the man they think kidnapped the women, and it looked exactly like my date. They even mentioned the dating app that he used, which is the same one we met on. So I decided that after work, I would go to the police myself. I spoke to the detective and gave him all the information. His name, his social media, his dating profile, and I even told him about how he behaved on the first date. Later on that night, I got home and blocked him from everything. 2 days later, the police show up to my job and told me that they caught him. And when they went to search his lake house, they found the missing women. Apparently, he would lure women to his lake house and keep them there for days, eventually unaliving them. The police told me that if I hadn't followed my instincts, I might have ended up like they did. He's now in maximum prison, and somehow he managed to send me a letter. I burnt it as soon as I got it. Apparently, he still wants to talk to me. Never trust him when you meet online.